Okay. Are you ready to dive deep into something that might just totally shift how you think about love and relationships?
I
All
am.
right. We are taking a look at excerpts from The Art of Marriage, Oneness, Free Will, and Divine Union by L.S. Larkey.
Ooh.
And trust me, this is not your typical marriage manual.
You're telling me this goes way beyond the usual relationship advice.
So what's so different about this book?
Well, it all starts with an idea that Larkey calls the divine paradox.
Okay, the divine paradox. I like the sound of that. So what is this paradox all about?
Well, it's this kind of beautiful tension between like two really basic human desires.
Okay.
On the one hand, we crave connection, that sense of oneness with something bigger than ourselves, whether it's like a partner, a community, maybe even the universe itself.
Yeah,
But then on the other hand, we also have this really deep need to hold on to our individuality, right? To be
totally.
our own unique selves.
Yeah, and I can see that playing out in so many ways, not just romantic relationships, but friendships, family dynamics.
Right. Even our relationship with society as a whole.
Exactly.
It's like we're constantly trying to find that sweet spot between merging and separating.
Exactly. And that's where marriage comes in.
Well,
Larkey argues that marriage is like this perfect little microcosm of the divine paradox. You have these two distinct individuals who are choosing to create a shared life together, a shared purpose,
Yeah.
but they still have to navigate their own individual journeys.
So how does that play out, like practically? In the day-to-day of being in a relationship? I mean, it's easy to talk about oneness and individuality
Yeah.
in these like abstract terms. But how do those concepts actually manifest in the way we interact with our partners?
That's where things get really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because the book really doesn't shy away from the messy human side of all of this.
Okay.
Larkey goes deep into the role of the ego
Uh-oh.
and how all our own illusions and attachments can actually get in the way of having real intimacy.
Right, the ego. Always gonna mess things up. So is this where things get a bit more practical?
A little less esoteric and a little more about the nitty-gritty of how we relate to each other.
Absolutely. The book talks about how the ego, with its focus on like separation and control, can lead to possessiveness, judgment, this constant need to be right,
Oh, yeah.
all of which can like totally sabotage our efforts to have a truly harmonious connection.
Okay, so let's get real. Can you give us an example of how this ego-driven behavior might show up in a relationship?
Sure.
Something that maybe our listeners can relate to, maybe even recognize in their own lives.
Well, think about those classic arguments that couples have. You know the ones?
Uh-huh.
The ones that just seem to go round and round and round.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's not even about the actual issue.
Right.
It's about who's right,
Totally.
who's in control, who gets to call the shots in the relationship.
Yeah.
That's the ego, flexing its muscles,
Yeah.
trying to hold on to this idea of being separate and in charge.
Ouch. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we've all been there. You to be right, even if it means that you're going to sacrifice the connection to win.
Exactly.
But the book doesn't leave us hanging, right? It gives us some guidance on how to get past those ego traps.
It does. And that's where Larkey brings in this idea of free will.
Okay.
But not free will as this like rebellious force, but free will as a tool for aligning ourselves with a bigger purpose.
Okay.
A purpose that might even be bigger than what we as individuals want.
So free will isn't about stubbornly doing your own thing. It's about consciously choosing to act in a way that supports the good of the relationship as a whole.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that your individual freedom actually gets bigger, not smaller.
Wow.
When you choose to harmonize your will with the shared purpose of the relationship, it's recognizing that true freedom actually lies in letting go of those ego-driven desires and choosing to act from love and understanding.
So it's less about my way or the highway.
Yeah.
And more about finding a path that allows both people to thrive and evolve together.
Exactly. And Larkey actually uses teachings from different spiritual traditions to get this point across.
Okay.
There's this beautiful story in the book about a Zen master who's teaching his students that true freedom comes from surrendering to the present moment, letting go of attachments to outcomes, and embracing, the flow of life.
Surrendering to the present moment. That sounds lovely in theory, but how does that actually work in the real world of relationships,
Right.
where you're constantly dealing with conflicting needs and desires and expectations?
Well, that's where the real work comes in.
Okay.
The book gives us specific practices that can actually help us cultivate this kind of surrender in our relationships. Things like meditation, mindfulness,
Yeah.
even simple acts of service can help us shift out of that ego-driven mindset
Okay.
and connect more deeply with ourselves and our partners.
So it's about building like a toolkit for a more conscious and fulfilling relationship. A
Exactly.
toolkit that helps us move beyond those knee-jerk reactions and access a deeper level of wisdom and compassion.
Exactly. And what's really fascinating is that Larkey doesn't just stop at the spiritual and emotional side of things. He actually brings in a scientific framework to try to understand how human connection works.
Okay, now you've got me really curious. We're going from poetic language and spiritual teachings to a scientific framework.
That's right.
Talk about a plot twist.
It's pretty wild. Larkey actually brings in a mathematical equation.
What?
He calls it the Grand Fibonacci Synergy PDE.
Okay, I've got to be honest.
Hmm.
My math skills are a little rusty. Can you break that down for us non-mathematicians?
Sure.
What is a PDE, and what does it have to do with love and marriage?
All right. So PDE stands for partial differential equation. And I know it might sound a little intimidating, but Larkey assures us we don't need a PhD in physics to get it.
Okay, good.
Basically, he's using this equation to represent this cosmic harmony that he thinks underlies all relationships. Like it's a mathematical map of how two souls can come together and make a shared reality.
So it's not just some abstract formula. It's a way to actually visualize the energetic dance between two people in a relationship.
Exactly.
I'm starting to see how this ties back to that idea of the divine paradox.
Yes.
This interplay between oneness and individuality. But I'm still curious about, like, the specifics. What are the key elements of this equation?
Okay, well, one of the central pieces is something called the synergy wave function, and it's represented by the Greek letter psi. Think of it as like a snapshot of a person's overall state, their physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being all rolled into one.
So it's like a mathematical picture of a person's inner world.
Yeah.
Their unique energy signature, so to speak.
Exactly. And then you have all these other things that come into play,
Okay.
like what Larkey calls cosmic influences. And these things shape and mold the synergy wave.
Okay.
He mentions things like the subtle magnetic field, represented by the letter B, and the relative vacuum of space, represented by the Greek letter phi.
Hold on. Subtle magnetic field? Are we talking about actual physics here? Or is this more like esoteric territory?
That's what's so cool about this. Larkey seems to be bridging the gap between like conventional science and something a little more mystical. He suggests that we're all influenced by these forces, whether we're aware of them or not.
Okay, so we've got this synergy wave function representing our individual energy.
Right.
And we've got these cosmic influences that are shaping that wave.
Yes.
But how does this all connect to relationships,
Yeah.
to two people coming together?
That's where boundary conditions come in. Larkey says that those parts of our DNA that scientists often dismiss as junk DNA might actually play a crucial role in shaping our predispositions,
Oh, okay.
our attractions, even our subconscious patterns in a relationship.
Wait. Our junk DNA is influencing our love lives. Now, this is getting really interesting. How does that even work?
It's definitely still a theory, but Larkey suggests that those non-coding sequences in our DNA might actually hold information that shapes our subconscious tendencies, our attractions, maybe even our fears when it comes to relationships.
So it's like we're carrying around a blueprint for our relationships in our DNA,
You could say that.
like a cosmic code that's influencing who we're drawn to and how we interact with them.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it. And what's really empowering is that Larkey thinks that pursuing knowledge, actively seeking truth, can actually help us to reshape those ingrained patterns. It's like we can actually rewrite the code.
So the more we learn about ourselves, about relationships, about the forces that shape us, the more power we have to create the kind of love we truly want.
Exactly. It's about expanding our awareness, bringing those unconscious patterns into the light, and then consciously choosing to create a more fulfilling, harmonious connection.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. We've gone from the divine paradox to junk DNA influencing our love lives. I can't wait to see where this deep dive takes us next.
Me too.
Huh.
There's a lot more to unpack, and I have a feeling we're just getting started.
This is one for the deep thinkers out there, folks. We're going to take a quick break, but stay tuned because we're about to dive even deeper into the mysteries of love, marriage, and all the cosmic forces that shape us all. Welcome back. I'm still thinking about that last segment. Who knew our junk DNA could be playing Cupid behind the scenes?
It's wild, right?
Yeah, it really
I
is.
think it's one of the most interesting ideas in the whole book. It
Yeah.
just shows you that even things we think we know about ourselves, about science, about love, can be totally flipped upside down.
Totally, totally. And speaking of perspective shifts, the book doesn't just look at like the inner workings of a relationship.
Right.
It also dives into the ethical side of seeing marriage as a sacred union.
That's right. Larkey argues that seeing beauty and pleasure and goodness as like divine gifts actually has some big ethical implications for how we view marriage.
Okay, so let's break this down a little. What does it even mean to approach marriage from an ethical standpoint? Like, what does that look like in real life?
Well, I think it starts with a fundamental shift in mindset, like moving away from that need to possess and control and moving towards a sense of shared responsibility.
So it's less about what's in it for me and more about how can we contribute to the well-being of this thing,
Yeah,
and to
exactly.
the world around us.
Yeah, exactly. It's about acting with humility, compassion, and justice, not just toward your partner, but toward your family, your community, even the planet itself.
Wow.
It's about seeing that our choices ripple outwards. They have consequences beyond just us.
So it goes way beyond like the traditional vows, like for better or worse.
Right.
It's recognizing that your relationships have a real ripple effect.
Yes.
They can actually be a force for positive change in the world.
Absolutely. And Larkey emphasizes that when we behave ethically,
Okay.
it creates this resonance, this positive energy that actually amplifies that synergy wave that we talked about before.
Right, right.
So when you act with integrity and a sense of purpose, you're not just strengthening your own relationship, you're actually helping the whole.
So it's kind of like those quotes about how small acts of kindness can change the world.
Yeah.
It's not just about these grand gestures.
Right.
It's about those little choices we make every day.
Exactly. It's those little moments of grace, of understanding, of choosing love over fear, even when it's really hard.
Yeah, I'm struck by how many different perspectives this book pulls together.
Right.
It's blending spirituality, philosophy, psychology, even math. It's amazing.
I know, it's so cool.
It's like we're putting together this massive puzzle, and each piece, whether it's like a spiritual teaching, a psychological insight,
Yeah.
or even a mathematical equation, gives us this different angle on the bigger picture.
Yeah. And the best part is that there's no one right answer.
I love that.
The book just encourages you to sit with these ideas, to see what resonates with you, and then try to apply them in your own life.
That's really empowering.
Right.
It's not about blindly following rules. It's about finding your own truth.
Exactly. And the journey is just as important as where you end up.
So to recap, the book is basically suggesting that marriage can be seen as this like microcosm of the divine paradox.
Yeah.
This dance between oneness and individuality, free will and surrender,
It's all there.
all playing out within this committed relationship.
That's a great way to put it. It just shows how marriage, with all its ups and downs, can be a really powerful way to grow spiritually.
Like a crucible where we can refine our understanding of ourselves, each other, and what love actually is.
Yeah, beautifully put. And that reminds me of the sacred practices that the book talks about.
Yes, practices like meditation, mindfulness, prayer, acts of service,
Yeah.
all those tools that can help us cultivate a deeper connection.
Yeah, with ourselves, with the divine, and by extension with our partners.
Right.
The book says that these practices create this space for greater understanding and compassion, and even forgiveness in a relationship.
It's like we're making the soil more fertile for love to grow in.
I love that. That's a great analogy. And it reminds me of how the book actually uses the metaphor of a garden to describe how you can cultivate a thriving marriage.
A garden. I like that. Tell me more about that.
So just like a garden needs, tending, watering, weeding, fertilizing,
Yeah.
a marriage needs that too. It needs care and attention.
So it's not like a set it and forget it kind of thing.
No, definitely not. It's an ongoing process.
Yeah.
It's about growth and evolution, and it takes both partners to really participate in that.
Yeah, and just like a garden, a marriage can yield some pretty beautiful fruit when you tend to it properly.
Exactly. And the book says that those fruits aren't just about personal fulfillment.
Yeah.
It's about a ripple effect of positive change in the world.
This is so inspiring.
Yeah.
It's like we're being given a roadmap for creating not just a fulfilling marriage, but like a more loving and harmonious world.
That's the power of the source material. It's not just about abstract concepts.
Yeah.
It's about practical tools that you can actually use in your own life.
Yeah, it's like we're being given a key to unlock a deeper meaning and purpose in our relationship.
Yes, and an invitation to open that door and see what's on the other side.
This has been such an amazing conversation. I feel like I'm seeing marriage in a whole new way.
Me too.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is how the book manages to blend science
Yeah.
with spiritual insights.
It's amazing.
It's this multifaceted view on this thing that's so timeless.
Yeah, it's like we're getting to see the hidden architecture of love, both the mystical and the mathematical parts.
Exactly. It's a reminder that there's always more to learn, more to discover, more to appreciate about this whole mystery of human connection.
Yeah, I'm so glad we went on this deep dive together. It's
Yeah.
given me so much to think about
Me too.
in terms of my own relationships and just how connected everything really is.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I bet it sparked some interesting thoughts for our listeners too.
For sure. We're going to be thinking about this stuff for a while.
Totally. This source material has so much depth. The more you reflect on it, the more you discover.
Okay, before we move on, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier about ethics. You said that the book says that recognizing beauty and pleasure and goodness as like divine gifts has ethical implications for how we approach marriage and life.
Right.
And it's about seeing ourselves not as owners, but as stewards. I'm curious to hear more about what that looks like practically.
That's a great question. It's easy to get lost in theory,
Right.
but it's all about how we actually put these ideas into action.
Exactly.
And the book suggests a few key principles for ethical stewardship in a marriage.
Okay, tell me more.
Well, I think the first and most important one is reciprocity.
Yeah.
Realizing that the relationship is a two-way street. It's a true partnership where both people are giving and receiving equally.
Okay.
It's about honoring each other's needs and dreams.
So you're not keeping score.
Right.
You're just making sure that both people feel valued and supported.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
about making this dynamic where both people feel like they can grow and contribute to the relationship.
That makes a lot of sense. So what else is involved in ethical stewardship?
Well, another big one is responsibility. It's about really owning your actions,
Okay.
both in the relationship and in the world. It's about being accountable for how you treat each other, how you communicate, how you contribute to making the relationship healthy.
So it's not about blaming each other when things go wrong.
No,
It's about taking responsibility for your part in this situation.
exactly. It's about realizing that you always have a choice in how you react to challenges, how you say what you need, and how you help the relationship overall.
That's a good reminder. It changes things from feeling like a victim
Right.
to being someone who can shape their own experience.
Exactly. It gives you the power to make choices that are in line with your values and what you want for the relationship.
What other principles does the book talk about?
Another big one is respect. It's about being kind, compassionate, and considerate, even when you disagree. It's about really valuing each other's individuality and understanding that you each have your own unique experiences.
So it's about making a space where both people feel safe to be themselves, to share their thoughts and feelings without being judged.
Exactly. It's about making an environment of trust and understanding where both people feel valued for who they are.
That sounds like a great foundation for any relationship. But what about this idea of stewardship extending beyond just the two people in the relationship?
That's an important point. The book says that ethical stewardship also means thinking about the impact your relationship has on the world as a whole.
Okay.
So it's about thinking about the choices you make as a couple and how those choices affect your community, the environment, even future generations.
So our relationship isn't just this private thing, it's part of a larger connected web of life.
Exactly. It's about broadening your circle of concern to include not just yourselves, but also the well-being of the planet.
That's powerful. It really makes you think beyond your own immediate needs and consider the long-term effects of your actions.
It does. And it encourages you to live in a way that is fulfilling for you personally, but also helps the world at large.
It's a beautiful vision.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of what we talked about before, how the book emphasizes aligning our free will with a higher purpose.
Right. It's about understanding that we have the power to make decisions that are in line with our values and our vision for a better world.
So it's not just about what we personally get out of the relationship, but how we can use our relationship to make a positive impact on the world.
Exactly. It's about seeing your marriage as this sacred thing.
Yeah.
This co-creative endeavor where you can work together to make a real difference.
I love that. This whole conversation has been so eye-opening. I'm seeing marriage in a whole new light,
Me too.
not just as a personal journey,
Right.
but as something that can actually be a force for good in the world.
Exactly. And it reminds us that love isn't just a feeling.
Right.
It's this powerful energy that can change our lives and the world around us.
Okay, we're back, and I'm ready to tie all this together. We've explored the divine paradox, the secret influence of junk DNA, even a cosmic equation. But how does all this apply to you, our listener, in your own search for love and connection?
Yeah, that's the big question, right? And what I think is so cool about Larkey's work is that he doesn't just give us these big theories.
Right.
He gives us practical stuff and a way to understand how we can actually build better relationships.
So it's like, we have this map, but we need to learn how to use it in our own lives.
Yeah.
What are some key takeaways that people can start using, like today?
I'd say one of the most important things is that relationships aren't about finding the perfect person.
Okay.
It's about going on this journey together and
Yeah.
growing and transforming together.
It's like we're all works in progress, right?
Exactly.
We've all got our own baggage and our own quirks.
Yes.
And our own ways we need to grow.
Yeah, and instead of trying to change your partner or make them into some ideal, it's about creating a space where both of you can feel safe to be yourselves, where you can express your needs and just evolve authentically.
So it's less about finding someone who completes you and more about finding someone who pushes you to be your best self.
That's a great way to put it. And it's not always going to be sunshine and roses. There will be hard times, fights, times when you might question everything.
For sure.
But the key is to see those things as chances to grow, to understand each other better, and to make your bond even stronger.
And that's where those practices we talked about before can really come in handy, right?
Absolutely.
Meditation, mindfulness, learning to be compassionate. Those tools can help us get through those tough times.
Exactly. And remember that idea of free will we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
It's realizing that even when things are rough, even when someone's pushing your buttons, you always have a choice in how you react.
We can choose to react with fear and blame, or we can choose to respond with love and understanding.
And that choice, that's what really makes all the difference. Every time you choose love, you're not just making your relationship stronger. You're making the world a more loving place.
It's like ripples in a pond, expanding outward from one spot.
Yeah.
And it all starts with the everyday choices we make and how we treat each other.
And if you think about that equation, the Grand Fibonacci Synergy PDE, it suggests that our choices can actually change the energy of the relationship.
Interesting.
And create either harmony or, conflict.
So it's not just about our feelings. It's about the energy we bring into it.
Yes.
The intentions we have and the things we do. We're kind of co-creating this whole dance of love.
That's exactly it.
And we both play a part in how it turns out.
And that brings us right back to the divine paradox.
Yeah.
That push and pull between oneness and individuality.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about losing yourself in the relationship. It's about finding that balance.
Okay.
Where you can both thrive as individuals,
Yeah.
but also create something even bigger together.
It's like two trees growing next to each other. Their branches interlace.
Yes.
But each one is still strong in its own ground.
I love that image. It really speaks to the power of marriage or any committed partnership to help us grow as people and spiritually.
This deep dive has been amazing. It's like we've covered everything.
I know, right?
From the mystical to the mathematical, from the deeply personal to the way we're all connected. It's obvious that love is this force that we can't easily define.
It really is.
But it's also a force that can completely change us and the world around us, if we're willing to embrace how complex and beautiful it is.
That's so true. And that's the challenge, right?
Yeah.
To dive into the mystery, to let go of what we think we know and just trust the journey.
So to all our listeners out there, whether you're single, coupled up, or somewhere in between, remember, love is a journey, not a destination. It's this dance of two souls, a blending of energies, a tapestry woven with both light and dark.
And as you find your own way, through love and connection, bring all of yourself to it. Your flaws, your vulnerabilities, your passions, your hopes and dreams. Because that's where real love grows, in that true expression of who you are.
This has been an incredible deep dive. Thank you for being here with us on this exploration. I hope your hearts are full of love, your minds are full of wonder, and that you have the courage to embrace all that love has to offer.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep diving deep, and never stop believing in the power of love to change the world.